Right, the rather shocking and surprising news of Peter Lawwell leaving Celtic at the end of June reached us all, what, about 10 days ago now? A week ago, something like that. Since then, you've had my perspective, you've had John's perspective, but you probably don't really care about what either of us have to say. So we'll get Jackie in for a bit of a player's perspective, or a former player's perspective, on what Peter Lawwell was like at the club. Jackie, I'm assuming you had quite a few dealings. I think he came to the club in late 2003. You left shortly afterwards, maybe a year and a half or so. What was your kind of overall thoughts on Peter Lawwell?
I think it's kind of mixed. I think he's done a lot of good things. He changed the club. He came in 2003. Obviously, I didn't have a lot of dealings with him, apart from when my contract expired and Gordon came in, which wasn't great. It wasn't great dealings, but I have respect for him, and I think he has done a lot of good things for the club.
The talk about Lawwell always at Celtic is that he's got a hyper amount of control at the club and that he's overly possessive of different. Do you kind of get that impression? Does he really have as much control as people allude to and say at the club? And does he really oversee the football department as much as people say?
Yeah, I think he does. Yeah, I think obviously you've got Nicky Hammond is the recruitment, and you've got the manager. But I think when we spoke, earlier on in the season, I had a kind of wee rant about people that should be accountable, in different departments. I had no talk about things throughout the season, about fitness, about, sports scientists there. And I do think that there should be somebody in place between Neil and Peter, because everybody should be accountable at the club. Would it be recruitment? Would it be the fitness side of it, all the injuries they've had, muscular injuries, and reporting back to Peter? So when something goes wrong just now, we blame kind of two people, or we go towards Peter or the board, or it's Neil Lennon's fault for what you're watching every Saturday, every game. But there's a lot more people behind the scenes you don't see that should be accountable. Like I said, if they're talking about they're not fit enough, or they're not, they don't want to be at the club, they don't want this, I think there should be an infrastructure in place with a sporting director of football, so people can obviously look after the departments and make sure they're all running smoothly. The academy, what's happening with the academy as well, I've seen something this morning. I've got a young player that we've let go, is now signing a pro contract at Leicester. So
yeah, I've seen that.
And the wee things are quite worrying, but Peter Lawwell can't be in control of everything. There's too much to do. There's too much things going on, and I think more than anything, to ask one person to cover all that, the football department, or cover all the bits, it's far too much. And look at the recruitment, look at the players when they do the contracts, do the negotiations. So it's a lot of stuff to deal with that should be delegated to other people, so everybody else around the club, from academy, reserves, first team women's football, everybody is accountable, and that's a performance. They have to be performing at the highest level. If not performing, right, who's in charge of that? Why is that not? And I think that's something that's maybe missing, that maybe they should be looking at for the new guy coming in. We can have every department that's got to answer to.
I mean, one of the things I've been speaking about recently is that perhaps a sporting director or a director of football needs to be appointed before a new manager comes in, because you want that person to have real control, a football person who knows a lot about the industry and knows a lot about performance as well, though, to kind of help select a manager or a coach in that scenario. It seems backwards to me to appoint a new coach or manager and then bring in a sporting director above him. It should be the other way about. Would you agree with that, Jackie?
Yeah, absolutely. Because then he's accountable. The sporting director's accountable for bringing the manager in, and the reasons for that, and he explained that. And again, that sets the whole thing moving in the right direction. Same with the recruitment, all the people looking at players, what's the recruitment strategy? So everybody's on the same hymn sheet. The academy, are they coming through at the right time? And enough questions asked of them about the coaching, about the development of the young players. Have they got a platform to play? I believe that Celtic should have another club in either Europe or somewhere out with that we can farm out our young players to go and get experience. You can farm out your young coaches to go and get experience and see if they could handle that, and then a chance of coming back to Celtic to play in the first team. And I think that's something that should have been done as well, and still can be done. But there's been talk over the years about the Colts playing in the lower league, which is fine. That most of the kids at Celtic go out and loan and get that experience. But if you're doing it out with Celtic, Celtic on another club out with Scotland, it's a chance to go and let the kids play and get the experience to see if they can handle that and the demands that come with playing with a club like Celtic, and the coaches, if they can handle that, the step up as well.
Yeah, Dominic McKay coming into the club first day is the first day of July, I think. We don't have the really early European qualifiers next season. Assuming we finish second, I think it will be first week in August, something like that, for the first round of qualifiers we play. So we maybe do have a little bit of extra time. But my question to you, Jackie, is there enough time for him to come in to assess what's happening at the club, to get in a sporting director or a director of football, and then help to appoint a manager all in time for these qualifiers and the start of the league campaign?
No, the answer is no. I think it's that for me would need to be coming in now and start the things moving now. Start the process of the management, the recruitment, because when he comes in, it'll already be done. So he's coming in after the event. The players are already in place, and and obviously we need to wait and see about the management side and everything else along with that. But no, I think there's too many things just now need resolved, and if it comes in July, it'll not be resolved till the following year.
Yeah. I agree with that, and I think you're right as well that if a sporting director's in place, they can at least communicate that to the fans. I've also been speaking about the need for on day one to kind of launch a review of what's going on and publicly publish the findings. You don't need to give away your secrets, but you can give a summary of what you think's going wrong or what you think can change. I mean, it's all well and good for someone like Peter Lawwell to say that we should be qualifying more regularly for the Champions League, for example, as he has done at the recent AGM. But it's another thing entirely to tell us how he plans to do that, or how a sporting director might plan to do that over the next few years. And it comes down to this thing of having a 3 to 5 year plan. And I know people are unhappy with the way that Celtic have kind of been integrating some of the foreign players this season. Obviously, we've spoken about Vasilis Barkas struggling. I mean, there should be a Celtic identity, a Celtic way of playing and training and conducting yourself at Lennox Town that we should be looking to recruit into. And I think I totally agree with you, Jackie. I think it needs a sporting director to oversee that and kind of institute that. And then people can try and fit into that, and we can identify players, not just based on their ability, but also on their personality and whether they can adjust to life in Scotland. That's part of it as well. It's a sporting director, it's not just about the day-to-day, it's about creating a culture at the club, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think it's identity, creating an identity of what the club, I think that a good examples like Red Bull.
Yeah.
Their example, they're different clubs there, but it's quite similar. They're set up and their coaching and how they go about things, even how they recruit players as well. They recruit really well, and I think something like that kind of structure or strategy would be good moving forward.
I mean, the defenders of Peter Lawwell say he's brought massive success to the club over the last 17 years, Hamish, but would you argue that perhaps we've done some of that despite Peter Lawwell, not because of him? Would you argue that, Hamish?
I think Peter Lawwell's made a lot of bad decisions in his time at the club. He's made some good ones as well. I think appointing Brendan Rodgers was quite clearly a brilliant, a masterstroke of an appointment, whether that was his doing or Dermot Desmond or a bit of both of them. But can you imagine a world when Brendan Rodgers, or where Brendan Rodgers wasn't appointed as Celtic boss? Because people kind of forget, as much as we were winning league titles under Ronnie Dyla, we were in dire straits. The crowds were terrible. The football, but for maybe 3 or 4 months in that first season, was pretty poor. We were regularly losing cup semis at Hampden. I mean, we never won at Hampden for about 4 or 5 years. It was pretty dull stuff. Yes, we were winning league titles, but it was disappointing.
People also talk about, Lawwell's impact on the turnover and the financials of the club, but people also forget that during the Brendan Rodgers years, we made more money than we kind of ever had.
I know. So why didn't he build on it?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure our turnover was up to 90 million at one point, and now it's back down the way, and it's all because of the Champions League. I mean, and that's set to just get even more lucrative over the next few years. I think from 2024, there's a new TV deal in the Champions League, and anyone that qualifies for the group stages there is going to be rolling in, and it's going to, push any Scottish club that's in the group stages that year into a new stratosphere, and this is what we're at risk of missing out on at Celtic. And Jackie's right. I mean, it doesn't happen overnight. But this 5-year plan, Jackie, that's the most important thing, isn't it? It's not about getting it right within 6 months. It's about getting it right over the next half decade.
Yeah, and it's building and things, building in every department. As I said, the academy for me has to be strong as well. There has to be a pathway for the kids to get through, because you're going to lose some fantastic talent, especially with Brexit and this new point system that's come into play. To bring in players into the UK with a point system is going to cost a lot of money, and it's going to be top international players that can only get in. So you're going to have to try and grow it yourself, or bring them in, a little bit cheaper, but and develop what they've done in the past. With the Van Dijks and Wanyama's, guys like that they're going to be difficult to get in now. So there has to be a plan put in place, because we can't afford to go out and spend 10, 15 millions on players, to bring them into the club.
And any new sporting director also needs to overhaul the scouting department. I know Nick Hammond's there at the moment, but I'd like to see us scout markets that we don't usually. Now, I understand the Brexit thing is going to make it harder to recruit from leagues such as the Scandinavian leagues, which is where actually German football's drawn heavily from at the moment, isn't it, Hamish? Or there's Italian teams going after Scandinavian talent now as well, which will make it more difficult. But we need to start getting on top of these emerging markets.
100%. It seems like, the days of us going to Holland and Belgium from years ago, where we got Van Dijk and Wanyama from, seem a long time ago. Nowadays, it just seems very much like we're focused on the English lower leagues, with the odd player coming for France. Just going back to the kind of the image that I hope Celtic have going forward. For me, what I want to see the club not being afraid to be honest with the supporters. I just feel this current regime are just trying to keep this squeaky clean image all the time with supporters, when supporters know fine well that things aren't going well behind the scenes, and they almost want to kid supporters into thinking that everything's fine. I would like the new regime to come in and to say, things aren't where we want them to be at the moment. This is where we want to get to, and this is how we want to do it. And I really hope Dominic McKay is going to be able to do that. I think a lot of it will hinge on what manager he brings in and how he starts. As much as we want a long-term goal, we want immediate or relative immediate success as well as Celtic fans. One thing when you were chatting about the academy there, Jackie, one daft idea I had, just as a daft guy who doesn't know a great deal about football, a lot of the English teams basically chuck the League Cup and play youngsters. Is that something you think Celtic could do? Would that be a good idea if it gave these players more game time, sacrifice a trophy, give more rest to some of the first team players?
Yeah, it's something they could do, but I think to give them the experience, I think that would be good. I think it's strong. The other one was the lower leagues. They had before it was the Iron Brew Cup, and the young kids were getting beat off teams like Annan. But I mean, it's a reality check when you're playing against men, because you don't get that, and I think that's why it's so important that they branched out and maybe bought another club there, and we could put the kids there to play against men as early as they can to get that experience, because the only other way they can do it is put them out in lower leagues, but then it's League Two, League One, the Scottish Championship, which Scottish Championship's okay in terms of experience. The lower leagues are okay in terms of experience, but it's not a top level, in terms of for the standard, that you want them to play at. It's a different kind of football for what they're coming in to play at Celtic.
I may be misremembering, Jackie, but it's something that Matt O'Neill did on occasion, didn't he? He used to play young players in the League Cup sometimes, I'm sure. McGeady and Maloney, that's how they got some opportunities early on to begin with. Seem to remember a particular game against Hearts at Tynecastle, unless my memory's completely lost me. But I think it's worth pursuing.
I was playing that one,
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Were you one of the young kids, Jackie?
I was one of the old ones in that game, but I remember the fans singing "Come on the Veins." And I think it was Batman 4. I think we scored 4 that night. Jamie Smith and Simon Lynch. Simon Lynch scored, I remember, so it's good experience, but I mean, that was slightly different because we were competing and playing European games. We were playing, and it was giving players a rest. A couple of times, obviously the first season we won the treble, but then after that, when we lost a cup game here or there, when he changed things around. So, it was him kind of building his trust with the players as well, seeing who could handle it and who could step in if they need be in the first team.
Yeah, I feel like Celtic fans would kind of accept it a little bit if they could see that youngsters were getting more of an opportunity. I mean, maybe didn't win, the League Cup every season, but maybe I'm talking out of turn. Maybe you would just get folk absolutely raging that would sacrifice their trophy.
Well, I mean, I think you always get a few idiots, but I mean, a lot of people. I mean, the Celtic support have taken a kick in this season as well. They've been getting slagged from a lot of quarters, but I think what Celtic fans want to see most of all, and basically just to tie this deal together, is some sort of plan and coherent vision, and for that to be communicated by the club. If we get that and the fans are still moaning and decrying everything at Celtic, then some people might have a point. But until the club do that, I don't think you can blame the fans too much for all the uproar at the moment, because basically it seems like from the outside that Celtic don't really have a clue, and Celtic don't really seem to be interested in portraying their vision as anything other than that. So that's my view on it. Jackie, it's important that the club bring the fans along with them here.
Absolutely. I think obviously it's going to be a big thing when they put the season books out to renew. The fans will want to see. The fans will want to see what actions have been taken, what the plans are, and it's as I said, that after this season, it's been tough. It's tough for fans not being in the stadium, not to express a disappointment or help the team on in certain games or get them through it, because two things there. The fans wouldn't have stood for the performances this season if they'd been allowed in the stadium, and maybe it might have helped the players. I'm sure it would have helped the players and the fans there. But it's the same for everybody. You've got to look at the other teams that they feel they'll be the same. They've not got the fans in the stadium. They've got to deal with it. But I think a lot of things need to happen first before the fans will renew their season books in good faith.
Jackie, just finally, are you a rugby man? Do you know much about Dom McKay?
I don't. No. It's no. I don't mind the rugby, but no, I'm not I don't really watch it.
We're in the same boat there, don't worry.
Well, accounts he's a supporter, and which is great. It's good that he's first and foremost he's a season book for a number of years, which sounds good, and his CV and everything else about him sounds really good. So hopefully, his good ideas and a freshness about him and a ruthlessness about him.
And
bring the club forward.
Hamish has done a few videos about him on the channel already. You're quite excited about it, aren't you, Hamish?
Excited about the future. It can't get any worse than this season, to be honest. I think we're going to have a new manager, we're going to have a new chief executive, and we're going to have a group of new players to get excited about, and we're going to have fans coming back to Celtic Park at some stage. So I think as bleak as things are at the moment, the future's bright. I'm just really intrigued by that season ticket campaign, because I think Lennon's still going to be in the job at that stage. I think he'll be in the job to the end of the season. We know that McKay isn't going to be in place when they're asking for fans' money, so I'm really intrigued to see how Celtic pitch that one. But they'll have to give the fans something, because otherwise I mean, would you get 10,000 renewing if things are as they are at the moment? Time will tell, I guess.
Maybe they'll call on club legends like Jackie McNamara to front up that kind of campaign. Fancy that, Jackie?
No,
Brilliant. Guys, I've enjoyed it. Thanks very much for your time.
Cheers.
Again. We've got stuff to look forward to in the world of Celtic, and we're certainly doing 67 Hail Hail. We've got videos coming to you every single day, and the best thing about it, John, is you don't have to pay a penny. That's how good
wonderful.
67 Hail Hail is. Remember to subscribe if you've not done it yet. We're way over the 10k mark now. Give it a go, and we'll be back pretty soon.